What's up everybody, it's Christian with Reaper Disc, and today I want to show you guys how to throw a roller. So we've all seen Eagle and Simon go out on these really long courses and rip 500, 600, 700 foot roller shots, and every one of us have been like, you know, I want to be able to do that. I'm not guaranteeing I'm going to be able to teach you how to do that today. That obviously comes from a lot of practice and experience, but I will show you the basics and fundamentals on how to start learning how to throw a roller and how to incorporate it into your game. So basically, the roller is a very simple shot. It is a shot that comes out and is intended to get down on the ground on edge and actually roll forward toward your intended target. There are a lot of different ways to throw rollers, from a cut roller, which is something that's going to, for a right-handed backhand player, stay on the angle and then start moving left really far, a distance roller, which is going to hold cut and then eventually stand up and then get back over onto its top, or a far right moving roller, which is something that is going to immediately stand up and then start trailing off to the right very fast. So in order to understand the physics of the roller, I need to explain a couple things about, well, physics itself. Rollers are very good at doing, you know, their intended purpose, because most of the weight of the disc is around the outer rim. This is where a majority of the material is, this is where the weight is. And because of that, there is a gyroscopic effect that causes a disc to, well, want to roll. And if you know how to control that and manipulate how it hits the ground, then you can start utilizing that to your advantage. Now, whereas normally a disc, you know, is either understable or overstable, that affects how it goes through the flight while it's still in the air. The physics of a roller is a little different on how to control the shape of it. So whenever a disc is straight up and down at a perfect 12 o'clock, the disc will naturally want to fall toward the flight plate side rather than the bottom side. It will want to eventually flip over onto its top. So that is because there is a slight bit more weight kind of over on this side, and it's going to naturally want to pull it over. If you want a disc to hold cut, you're going to want it to get over, not all the way to 12 o'clock, but you're gonna want it kind of like over here, kind of at a 45-degree angle maybe, and then that's gonna hold the cut. Now, if a disc is, you know, moving fast enough, as it rolls, it will stand up and then eventually get over. If it's not going fast enough, it's going to maintain the cut, or if you put too much angle, it can't ever get all the way up and over. That is the difference between different kinds of rollers. If you want something that moves a far way left, you're going to want it to hold cut. A long way right, you're going to want it to eventually get on its top at however far you want it, whether it's very quickly getting over to 12 o'clock or standing up after a few minutes and then going over. Or the distance roller, which you're trying to get it to hold a little bit of cut for as long as possible before flipping up and then getting over. So, I'm going to teach you guys how to throw the roller from the very bare bones beginning. You've never thrown a roller before and this is your first time approaching it, all the way up to how to throw some really big distance rollers, and then everything in between. Alright, so to get started, if you've never thrown a roller before, you're basically going to try to get the most understable thing that you can get and be able to throw an Anheuser. As long as you have both of those, you're going to be able to at least start to get a disc down onto the ground and start moving like a roller. For this, I'm going to use my ultralight Valkyrie. It's 150 grams, very understable, and I actually use this for some very specific rollers. And I also have a very beat up Rock 3. This is also very, very understable and can be utilized as rollers. I've done so before. It just kind of depends on the shot that I'm aiming for. Now, throwing something slower like a mid-range is also a little helpful, because if you can throw it faster than the flight numbers are intended to be, it causes it to naturally be a little more understable anyway, which is going to help it get over. If you want to learn more about that, pop over and look at our overstable and understable videos, as well as our flight number video. But let's get back to rollers. So I'm going to start off with the Valkyrie. Very simple. When you throw, you're going to want to bring the disc across your body. instead of like normal where you're going to want to keep it on a straight plane the entire way through, or even a little lower and keeping your body over it like power shots or big hyzers, you're going to want to bend your back backwards a little bit, bring the disc over, and hold an anhyzer angle the entire way and get it over. And when you release, you're going to want the disc coming out on anhyzer. That's going to help the disc come over, maintain, and get to the ground. The first few times you do this, you're really just aiming to get it onto the ground and just start rolling. Not really looking for any particular shape. Don't imagine that you're gonna start ripping off 400-foot rollers immediately. This is crucial just to start getting the body mechanics down. Just get the throw motion down, and then you'll start working later on getting that desired roller. First, you gotta start with the fundamentals. So I'm gonna step through slow and kind of show you how to do this, and I'll probably dub over this in studio and really walk through it. Alright, so we're just gonna walk through the form of the roller here, and I'm gonna stand here and just kind of go through it slowly. This is going to be one of those times that rounding actually isn't a bad thing. And as you've seen there, I'm going to start with the disc high, keeping it on intentional anhyzer the entire time, and really just trying to rip it straight over and onto the ground. Now this isn't going to give you big long roller shots like you might want, but if you're just learning the fundamentals and the form, this is how you get started. You get that flippy disc and you intentionally just rip it straight over into the ground. That way you can start learning what kind of angles the disc needs to be on. Then you can start working with adding more power and getting a better shape. But for now, just work on bringing the disc over your body and getting it all the way over and then down onto edge. Alright, so that is the bare basics on the throwing motion of a roller. As long as you're getting that disc over your chest and then coming down, and making sure you're intending on it to get down to the ground on the angle, then eventually, you can start working on, getting the perfect shot shape for the roller, adding more power, getting more distance, and things like that. But first, you really need to just get the basics of it down. So whenever you get the basics of it down, then you can start going into a little more power and choosing some different discs to start doing some different things. So let's start with that. Alright, so now we're going to be looking at kind of the more intermediate level roller. So you've got the basics down, you can get a disc down onto the ground and start to roll. And you're getting some distance and, it's starting to look like a roller. It's getting a little more smooth. When you throw it, it doesn't look as choppy. And it feels a little more natural. Now you can start stepping up to shot shaping your rollers. Now here's where you're going to start getting into your typical roller discs. You're going to start getting away from those really, really lightweight discs and very, very beat up that, you just throw like 4 miles an hour and they roll. Now we're going to start getting into the typical roller discs. And I've got 2 different molds and a couple different ones. I've got the Roadrunner and I've got the Sidewinder. So the Roadrunner and Sidewinder are very, very similar. They're both very understable, 9 speeds, designed pretty much to roll. Now we'll start off with the Roadrunner. And the same as with the basics. You're going to come across, bring the disc over the body, and get it down. Now here, you're going to be throwing with a little more power than whenever you started, and it's going to be a little easier for you to get the disc over and onto edge. Because you can put a little more power on it and a little more speed, you can start getting the disc down with a little more angle and counting on it to be able to flip up. So I'm going to run through these real quick. I've got 2 Star Roadrunners, a Halo Star Roadrunner, and a Star Sidewinder. And all of these are pretty well going to do very similar things. And you'll be able to see, and again, I'll dub over this, that way you can hear kind of what's going on and my process whenever I'm throwing these. Alright, so now we're going to go into just the stock roller. You're going to get very good results from these just by still using a pretty understable disc, but trying to get one that's a little closer to max weight, that way it carries forward better. Using the same basic fundamentals, you're going to have your typical run up and X step, except you're going to be leaning back just a little bit and bringing the disc over your chest and over your body to kind of get it over and intentionally burn down on the edge. Now, that blue Roadrunner, I didn't get it all the way up. It just held cut the entire time, and the really thick grass just kind of swallowed it up. But here with the Halo, I'm going to get a lot better shape on this. And this is getting closer to what is known as the rainbow roller, where you get a little more air under it, and it makes like a rainbow shape before it hits the ground and starts rolling. And the Roadrunner really is an excellent disc for this shot, as is the Sidewinder. But back to the form fundamentals, you're just going to continue using those fundamentals, except you're throwing it closer to full power instead of very low power focused on getting it down. You're letting the disc do the work and get down onto edge. Alright, so now that we have the intermediate roller down, let me show you kind of a different kind of roller to do. Now, I talked about the immediate stand-up roller that's going to move really far to the right, and that's just something you need to get something really ultra flippy and get it down at 12 o'clock for it to start moving off to the right. Unfortunately, I'm dealing with some pretty thick grass here, and it won't let anything really stand up that fast. However, it's going to be perfect for this next type of roller, which is the cut roller. This is something that Nate Sexton is actually known to be able to do very, very well with his Thunderbirds. And that's getting something down on the ground at a pretty steep angle and counting on it to really start taking off and rolling to the left. And never standing up, never going really forward, it's just going to move left. For this, you're going to want a slightly more overstable disc. I'm using the Star Wraith, and I'll show it to you a couple times, but you're just going to almost essentially throwing an intentional roller. Getting something down to the ground fast and letting it get onto edge and carry left. So like I said, the cut roller is pretty well a specialty kind of niche shot within the roller category. And the Wraith is a very good disc for this because it has enough turn to help you get it on the edge, but not enough to let it stand up. You're going to try to just burn this over into the ground quick, maybe get it down at about a 45-degree angle, and let it take off left. Now, this blue Star Wraith I'm throwing right now is probably about the best example of this. Comes down almost at a perfect 45-degree angle and takes off left so far it goes out of frame. Alright, so that's the cut roller. Now, the final one is going to be the maximum distance roller. For this, I've got a couple different things. I've got my traditional roller disc, which is the Star Valkyrie. I also have something a little more neutral but still slower, like the Champion Hawkeye. But I also have two other discs, and these are a little more high speed. Now, these are going to be more for the advanced player, and you hear how people roll things that are fast, like the Wraith. Paul used to roll a Destroyer way back in the day. I have a Star Destroyer, which is naturally pretty understable for me, and a Glow Champion Turn, which in the Turn review, I mentioned that this would be a really good roller for a very fast-throwing advanced player. And we're about to see why. So I'm going to show you kind of that max distance roller. Now, the key here is to find that Goldilocks zone, because if it gets to the ground too much or too fast, it's going to start running out of steam. There's a lot more friction through the air, or on the ground, sorry, rather than the air. So it's going to slow down as it rolls through the grass and want to fall back over instead of getting all the way up. It's going to do that a lot quicker rolling rather than slowing down through the air. However, if you leave it in the air too long, it will slow down enough that it doesn't want to ever pick up, and the force of the hit is going to take a little bit of steam out of it and slow it down. So you're going to need to find that Goldilocks zone of how long to stay in the air to really get the optimal result. It's kind of like a bell curve here. If it gets on the ground too fast, it's not going to do as well. And you reach that Goldilocks zone, it's going to do really well, but if you stay in the air too long, it's not going to do well. Your goal is to try to get somewhere up in here on that bell curve and be able to get the most out of the flight and then the roll. So I'll start with the Hawkeye and then transition down through my Valkyrie and then through the Turn and the Destroyer. Alright, so the long distance roller is truly an art form. You've got to have perfect conditions and the perfect ground. And unfortunately, like I said, this grass is really, really thick, so it slows the disc down a lot. But in order just to show you, I'll be able to at least rip some good ones. Now the first two are slower speed discs. The Hawkeye is a 7-speed, the Valkyrie is a 9-speed, and the reason a lot of people opt for these lower speed fairway and control drivers is because you can overpower them and cause them to turn over, but as they slow down, they maintain a little stability and help hold the angle of whatever, you know, intentional roller that you're trying to get down. And both of those are really, really good. The faster you get the disc, though, the further you can actually get the roller to go, but the harder it is to get it all the way down. That's why this is a more advanced option. You have to have an absolute ton of arm speed and power to get a really fast disc to turn over, but once you do, that wide rim really allows it to take off running. And this Destroyer shot is actually my longest roller disc, mainly because it will hold the cut for so long before finally standing back up. Alright everyone, those are my tips on how to start throwing the roller and incorporating it into your game. What do you think of these? Drop me a comment and let me know. And let me know if there's any other kinds of shots that you guys want a little more guidance on how to start executing and putting into your game. Follow us on social media at Reaper Disc so you can keep up to date with all of the new releases and restocks that we have over on the store. Subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you're the first to know whenever we drop new content. If you're looking for a new roller disc for yourself, click the link in the description to head on over to reaperdisc.com. That way you can start shopping for your next roller disc. That way you can start putting these shots into your bag. Again, I'm Christian with Reaper Disc, and I'll see you guys in the next video.